First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me here. Yesterday, I have had the chance to meet most of you, and I think it's the 6th edition, and it looks like a very exclusive club on motor insurance for this part of the world. And I'm very honored to be in the process of becoming a member. Secondly, I think I'm very happy to give you some supervisory perspective on some issues. I know that in some of the jurisdictions you are coming from, the MTPL market has been already liberalized and in some not. So I'm sorry to be boring for those who went already through this process. But then on the other hand, maybe you can also assist colleagues from the still non-liberalized markets with your experience. The next thing I would like to mention is that I'm very happy to be here because whilst being a member of European Insurance and Occupational Pensions Authority, i.e. EIOPA, I have had the honor to have some sort of unofficial mandate to take care of the countries in the region and to assist them, of course, mostly focusing on the countries of ex-Yugoslavia, but also in Central Asia, etc. And we are really happy to work together in the accession process, in the process of recognizing this part of the world. I also spent a couple of years in my former life, in my former employment, as being responsible for Kosovo and Albanian markets, so I know the region also from the business side. And I'm really happy to be here for all of these reasons. I will try to focus on very general issues, and I apologize in advance for explaining the obvious. But I think that in this modern world, which is more and more complex, we tend to see the details and forget to see the forest as a whole. So I will try to make some very general remarks, but I think very important ones. Speaking about the MTPL and the role of supervisor, this is my last introductory remark, is that basically we are in a bit of a schizophrenic role. Because on one hand, of course, our main aim is the fair treatment of claimants, of the injured parties, of the consumers. But then on the other hand, of course, we have to ensure that the insurance companies have a sustainable business model. So basically, we should not allow that the insurance companies are bleeding so much money not to be able to pay the claims. So just some really basic facts on the compulsory MTPL insurance. As Marius already mentioned, it was first introduced in the Nordic countries, actually in 1918 in Denmark. Basically, I mean, philosophically, we should look at MTPL insurance as a question of the allocation of the risk in society. With the introduction of with the mass introduction of motor cars, basically the society has become riskier and riskier because major part of the population was traveling around 100 kilometers per hour in something which weighs 2 tons, and it can cause a lot of damage. And therefore, to protect the victims from either the drivers who are not willing to pay for the damages, or from the drivers who are insolvent and not able to pay, the MTPL as compulsory insurance has been introduced. Of course, such an introduction makes sense only if the insurance coverage is unified and is comprehensive. So basically, the insurance coverage, if you want to make sense out of it, needs to be the same for everybody, which is important when we are talking about competition. It's a question of public interest, and of course, as we have already heard today a lot, the important part is that, of course, the motor vehicles are very mobile, and therefore there was a system of green card system introduced for the payment of cross-border claims. So the basic question is whether to regulate or not to regulate the MTPL coverage. Of course, as already mentioned, the contents of the agreement itself are already regulated. The premiums themselves, they may be or may not be regulated. The EU position is that competition is good in this field. Basically, EU position is there should be no regulation of premiums whatsoever in MTPL or in any other line of business. On the other hand, of course, we are speaking about USA as really a liberal market or liberal economy, but then on the other hand, the premiums there are highly regulated. So it's really a it's not a very simple answer whether it's good to deregulate or not. So as already mentioned, there is a strong case also for regulation. The line of business is in public interest, which is important. All vehicles must be insured. So you don't have, I mean, everybody should be insured. If the coverage is regulated, then also the premium should be regulated, because technically the risk is the same. Of course, not including the parts of the risk which are arising out of the differences of the motor vehicles themselves and the drivers themselves. But it would be perfectly legitimate to impose a tax which would be basically required to pay for the compensation and to make a compensation fund for all the victims of motor accidents. So it's a highly political decision how to approach this issue. As already mentioned, the EU position is very clear. Competition is good, therefore the companies should compete in the market. So the opposite of regulation. Then the second fundamental issue is what is regulated actually in this market. The product is the same. So basically the coverage is regulated in a way. Whether it's a control over price, no. Basically what we are talking about, it's the deregulation of pricing. Is there a control over the claims payment? Directly, no, but maybe indirectly with the tables as introduced in Portugal and Spain, maybe there is also some sort of claims payment regulation. But of course, as we already mentioned, the insurance industry in itself is highly regulated in a prudential sense. Basically, the government with its regulation should make sure that the whole industry, the whole market, has enough technical provisions and assets covering technical provisions, so that the market as a whole, all of the insurance companies, all of the participants on the market will be in financial position to meet its future commitments arising out of the insurance contracts. With the help of some of my colleagues, I have listed here the experience I know from neighboring countries or from the region. Of course, there is much more experience elsewhere. In Austria, the MTPL premiums have been deregulated in the late 1980s, and there was the problem basically that the premiums were too high, and the disruption on the market was done by the agents selling the MTPL premiums. In Slovenia, we have deregulated the premiums in 1997. We have had the opposite problem, because the premiums in Slovenia were too low. So basically the insurers had to rise the premiums in order to introduce a sustainable business model in this line of business. In Croatia, which was already mentioned twice today, if I remember properly, the MTPL premium was deregulated in the mid-2013 with the entry into European Union, and it was a huge shock on the market. I think, if I remember properly, Daniela said that on the average the premiums have fallen by 17% and the claims have risen at the same time. In Kosovo, where I have had also experience, the market is still highly regulated with all of the problems. So if we are looking at us sitting at this table, we have really a combination of everything. Before we go into more detailed presentation, there is a strong issue of competition in deregulation of MTPL premiums. Deregulation works only if it is replaced by a strong competition by the competitors who are able to stand by their commitments. And the question is, what is the competitive advantage in MTPL market? If we are talking about damage insurance, direct indemnity insurance, we are always talking, you can improve this by adding some additional services. You can add some additional coverage. You can add, I don't know, whatever is possible. You can deliver to your client I don't know, a pen whilst you pay him a claim. But in the MTPL, of course, all the payments, all the relation is done to the victim. So basically, the policyholder really doesn't care if there are any additional benefits or any additional services arising out of it. Furthermore, for him, he doesn't even care if the claim is actually really paid or not paid. So basically, the only competitive advantage is the price. Thus, such a competitive market need regulation. Yes, absolutely, and in a prudential sense. Basically, the regulators and the supervisors, they have to ensure that the business of the insurance companies is financially sound in a sense that they have enough technical provisions, that they have enough assets covering technical provisions to be able to pay the claims. And so if we move from the regulation of prices, we should really move, there is a strong case for prudential regulation and supervision. Here, I would like to talk a bit about the case where the regulated premiums were too low for the business model of insurance companies. This is the case of Slovenia, which is a bit exceptional in the region. So, when the premiums before 1997 were regulated, the technical results were extremely bad. The MTPL premiums was used as a microeconomic tool for regulating inflation issues by the government. When the new entrants entered the market in the 90s, basically what they have done cherry picking on the lines of business. When the new entrant came, he said, I will not write MTPL business, I will write only motor hull or casco, whatever you want to call it, which was profitable at the time, and I will not enter into MTPL business, which was bad for the companies which are already participating on the market. If I come back to Chris's presentation, there was, of course, MTPL as the main line of business on the market was cross-subsidized by other lines of business, which is basically against any reasonable rule. And, of course, there were poor levels of technical provisions on the market. Then 1997 came, and there was an agreement between the insurers to make the business sustainable. We have had a lot of discussions with the competition authorities because basically it means a cartel agreement, but because the issue was approached from a very technical and from a very expert way with the proper actuarial background, the competition authorities understood the issue. So first was the agreement between the players on the market. Then it was an agreement between the players on the market with the University of Ljubljana and with the supervisory authority to increase the actuarial expertise with a lot of assistance from the British Institute of Actuaries. And the role of supervisors was, let's say, very strengthened. And after the liberalization, now we had very good technical results. Actually, it's the best line of business sustaining the whole market. We have a healthy competition on segmentation. You can get really, based on segmentation, you can really get low premiums if you have a good record. And the market is sufficiently capitalized. What we have, or at least I have in my experience, so on the other markets, which are the problems which are on the other markets, which are not liberalized yet. Basically, the typical pre-liberalization market is a market with low insurance penetration, which means consequently that of course there is a big part of MTPL insurance because it's a mandatory insurance, and the rest, the other lines of business are not substantially present on the market. There is inadequate pricing and reserving expertise. Basically, there is a problem of lack of actuarial knowledge on the industry level and on the supervisory level. The next issue is the problem of regulated commissions. Maybe my colleagues will correct me, but if I remember properly, in the markets in, let's say, Southern Balkans, most of the commissions are regulated on the level between 6 and 10%. But actually, the commissions paid are going up to 40% because nobody cares because basically there is a fight for the market share, and the insurance companies are finding any channels to pay the commissions in the form of, I don't know, rents to the sales force, etc. And the problem, of course, is that nobody cares about the victims. I have seen a policy issued in 1993 in one of the countries which arising out of former Yugoslavia, and the policy stated this MTPL policy is issued only for the registration of the vehicle purposes only, and not for payment of any claims. So basically, the population at large is still not very well aware what they are paying for and what this product is for. So, the prerequisites for functioning of an insurance market, when I'm talking about market, I'm thinking about liberalized market, is adequate level of expertise on both levels, on the industry, of course, and on the supervisory side. Then we have three interconnected issues. You need to have transparent technical level premiums, because in these jurisdictions you have often the division between technical premium and so-called contribution for costs, which is basically for covering everything else. Adequate data acquisition and processing system. If we want to establish a proper pricing processes and proper provisioning processes, we need high quality data.
Excuse me, Sergej, I think you went back on your charts instead of going forward.
Sorry, it's, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for that. And of course, we need adequate level of reserving. And last but not least, all of the participants on the market should be solvent. The main obstacles on this way is lack of actuarial and supervisory expertise, lack of proper IT support, and the structure of the market, high concentration of the players, and generally undeveloped market with a too high share of MTPL. The next problem is the solvency levels and technically not financially sound qualified shareholders, which would be in position to increase the capital if needed. If the regulators in the markets would like to introduce liberalized MTPL premiums, I believe the following pitfalls should be really observed. Everybody on the market is running for the market share, and there is a problem of liquidity at any cost. Basically, there is no money, no liquid assets to pay for the claims. The markets will tend to converge to a higher concentration levels. Reduced claim settlement standards, basically the participants on the market will not lower their costs in terms of commissions. They will try to lower the claims. There might be major solvency problems, and there might be decreased reputation of insurance sector, which is very important, because with MTPL insurance, basically the population at large is affected, and if the population at large loses the confidence in the whole sector, it might be a systemic issue for the whole market. Steps to take in the following order. Basically, the first issue is to build up expertise, even if it means outsourcing it. I personally, as a supervisor, I don't care whether the expertise is in-house or out-house, but it needs to be present on the market if you want to take such an advanced step as the regulation of MTPL premiums. The second step is improving the reserving standards, removing the commission regulation, but only after improving the reserving standards, because basically first you need to establish proper reserving standards that you can see how much payment of the commission you can really afford. Introducing transparent regulation. Audit data acquisition and processing. Basically, we are again talking about data quality. Checking actual profitability of MTPL on real data. You should basically make sure all the participants on the market have to see in their cupboards if they are not hiding the claims files. Checking solvency position, market structure, and financial strength of qualified shareholders, whether they will be in position to increase capital if needed. Then liberalization of MTPL at increased reporting depth and frequency. Basically, both the supervisors and the participants on the market should know really on day-to-day basis what is going on the market, and then after that the market could be normalized in also on the reporting side. And just to conclude, in order to have a liberalized market, the following conditions in very general terms should be met. Enough actuarial expertise. This is basically the point. If we are talking about MTPL, it's a long-tail product. We need to have these people who are the only certified professionals who can predict the future to know what will happen in 10 years' time or in 15 years' time. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And it's a very complex issue because let's say, less developed markets are primarily MTPL market, and MTPL as a risk is a highly complex risk because of the long tail. The second condition is adequately solvent and reserved insurance market. The insurance companies should be properly reserved and, of course, should have enough financial resources. You should have a strong supervisor, a supervisor who will be able to adequately analyze the issues, any problems within the industry, and to have enough regulatory powers in a formal sense, and let's say would be enough independent to be able really to act. This is very important. I'm not talking only about less developed markets. I had a discussion with the former head of insurance supervision in the Dutch central bank, and she explained to me in the financial crisis that on the analytic side they were very strong. They could predict what is coming. They knew the risk, but they were not in position to act. They didn't, it's not about courage. They were not used. They didn't know how to react to such a huge problem. So basically, for the supervisors, it's about analytic tools, and it's about the, I would say, formal legal possibility and tools to act, and actually to have the proper mindset to act. Then you need, it sounds very obvious, but it's very important. You need a strong police preventing non-insured vehicles. A number of non-insured vehicles. Mario should know more about it, but if you have a certain number of uninsured vehicles, it might become a systemic issue for the whole market. And of course, last but not least, you should have some consumer awareness. Basically, the consumers should know, I mean, when I'm talking about consumers, I'm talking about the victims and the policyholders, what and for what purpose they are buying MTPL insurance. This would be all from my side. Thank you very much.